Ron DeSantis knows who he wants to face in the general election, and it's not Joe Biden. The Florida governor hitting back after relentless mudslinging attacks from Gavin Newsom. The pair have been duking it out over hot-button issues, including migrant flights and Newsom's pathetic threat to throw him in jail. DeSantis thinks it's time for Gavin to man up and get into the race for the White House.
You know what? Stop pussyfooting around. Are you going to throw your hat in the ring and challenge Joe? Are you going to get in and do it, or are you just going to sit on the sidelines and chirp? So why don't you throw your hat in the ring, and then we'll go ahead and talk about what's happening.
But I guess Gavin likes being on the sidelines. Here he is repeatedly ruling out a White House run.
Are you considering running for president in 2024 or 2028? Not even considering?
No, not at all. It's not my ambition. It's not the direction that I'm leaning into.
How many times does your phone ping a day, people saying you need to get in this race?
I see where you're going with that, Sean.
I'm asking.
No, and I'm not answering.
But that doesn't mean Newsom wouldn't relish the chance to debate his ideological foe.
You would do a 2-hour debate with Ron DeSantis.
I make it 3.
3-hour debate with.
Yeah, make
do
it.
I hear 4?
And do it with 1 day notice with no notes. I look forward to that.
Okay, Martha, what is the motivation for Gavin Newsom?
Aren't you just dying to see a 4-hour debate between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis? You know, this is very interesting. I mean, I love how I always listen to, politicians' words very closely, right? He's like, it's not my ambition. It's not the way I'm leaning right now. Mm-hmm. In other words, that could change at any moment, right? If Joe Biden decides not to run, I think a lot of people wonder if Joe Biden might do a Lyndon Johnson, might sort of at some point say, I've decided I'm not going to actually run again. He does that. The signs are not in that direction right now, but I think there's every reason to think that that's a possibility, that could happen. I think in some ways this is good for Ron DeSantis because it draws him out. I talk to a lot of people who say, where is he?
Interesting.
They want to know why he's not out there more, why he's not doing more interviews. I know he's spent time in Iowa and New Hampshire, and he's doing that work, which is really important to do. But I think a lot of folks, like to see him drawn out. And the Donald Trump issues have kind of sucked the oxygen out of the room, which happens all the time, right? Yep. But he needs to find his way to get in and to make his mark. So this kind of provided him a little bit of an opening to get in the conversation.
Greg, what do you think would be more interesting, a 3-hour debate between DeSantis and Newsom, or watching that, or Joe Biden going into a debate with Donald Trump?
Well, this is a good question because this is like a boxing bill, right? You have the lower card.
It's called the undercard.
Undercard.
Big boxing fan, Greg Gutfeld.
Yeah.
The low card.
All right. It's like the undercard. So they're going to edit out that first part?
Yes.
Yeah, they are, because this is a
clear.
taped show. You got Gavin, the Newsom versus Ron, the dissenter, DeSantis. But it's really about the top card, which is Joe versus the volcano. Although Ron is at least being honest about it, he's thrown his hair in the ring, but Gavin is pretending that he's not running for president when we know he is. He's all glory, no hole, as we like to say. But I think that Gavin is effective in that he's managing to run for president.
Happy Friday.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's managed to run for president without declaring he's running for president. He's definitely not governing California. None of this stuff has to do with California. Who's running California? It's just like Joe with America, United States. Who's running it? It's really strange. I don't think Democrats actually run anything they're in charge of, but it's clear that he's on a PR crusade to erase any flaws or obstacles that are going to show up next year. And around February 2024, you're probably going to see, when Joe drops out, you'll see Gavin step in with the My Pillow, and then he'll
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, as it relates
way,
to that
Judge.
undercard, what do you think? You think that Joe is going to drop out? I mean, and by the way, Gavin...
you know what I think? I think Gutfeld needs a drink.
Yeah, and ribs.
That's not coffee.
But, Gavin Newsom's wife came out and talked about something that happened something very tragic between her and her sister. And her sister ended up dying, and it's a very sad situation. But it's almost like, let's get this all out because we're getting ready to run.
Here's what's happening. Joe Biden and Gavin Newsom cut a deal. And the deal is Gavin's not going to primary Joe Biden, and they're going to make Gavin Newsom the heir apparent. Gavin Newsom just has to attack DeSantis. Doesn't matter about attacking Trump. Biden's got that covered. He's arresting him. They just need to run up DeSantis's negatives right now. And it never looked good when Joe Biden was attacking DeSantis. Remember, he did it for about 2 years, and Joe was really old looking and DeSantis was young and competent in Florida, and it kind of backfired. So they're like, let's send a younger, more liberal guy out there to attack DeSantis, and let's attack him on issues that Joe can't handle, immigration and trans. That seems to be the issue, because when you're attacking DeSantis, DeSantis is then attacking Newsom, and he's not attacking Joe Biden. So he's kind of drawing DeSantis' attacks away from Joe Biden. Pussyfooting around is a great line, and I'm glad he used it. And he used it in a humorous and casual way. He said, this guy's obsessed with me. He's obsessed. Everyone's leaving his state, and he just dismissed them. But these two are on a collision course, whether it's in 2 years or 6 years. You got a big governor in a big state. They're young. They got nice-looking families. They're both energetic. They're both very combative. And sooner or later, they're going to rip each other's faces off.
Ooh.
Well, you know, given what's going on right now, Richard, with Comer and the House and the Republicans, and we heard about that, you know, that unclassified 1023, and now there's allegedly tapes in addition to all the money that's flowing into the Biden family. You think there's a chance that Biden will step down and this is part of a bigger plan?
No, I don't think so at all. And I mean, we're not really sure. I mean, in an interview, he said he wasn't sure if the tapes were legit or not. But on this DeSantis issue,
You think he has to listen to them?
I don't know.
doubt it.
I don't know what Comer's.
Maybe
I don't know
he
what
was
Comer's
part of
doing.
it.
I mean, if he had it, he would have had a hearing about it. But I digress.
Well, no, he couldn't get it from
I mean,
Christopher
listen,
Wray.
like I said, if they had the evidence, they would have had a hearing. But let's focus on this
But wait a
particular.
minute. No, he just got it from Christopher Wray.
All he does is do television interviews, and he hasn't had a hearing yet. But anyway, back to Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis, because I think that's a very interesting story. Jesse, I'm not sure if we're watching the same television show, because last time I checked, the person dumping on Ron DeSantis is Donald Trump, right? Every day he's attacking Ron DeSantis, and it seems to be working because, like to Martha's point, nobody knows what Ron DeSantis is. And I think in this clip that we saw here, Ron DeSantis was signing the state's budget, and what you find out in this state budget is that he's infighting with Donald Trump once again. In the budget, he vetoed a $20 million investment for the University of South Florida's nursing campus during a nursing shortage because the senators whose district that's in endorsed Donald Trump. He also vetoed $3.6 million for opioid treatments. He vetoed 17 drainage improvement projects, all in the same budget. He wants to make this fight between him and Gavin Newsom, but it seems very clear, talking about not being able to manage somebody's state, it seems that Ron DeSantis seems more trying to win this primary more than I'm actually trying to govern the state of Florida.
Then why is everybody moving to Florida?
I'm talking about the polls. I mean, clearly he's not even
I'm talking
close.
about people moving with their feet, not the polls.
Yeah, listen, you can have this conversation if you want to. He's running for, now he's a candidate.
Well, then I will.
Sure. Right now he's running for president of the United States, and he is losing to Donald Trump by, 20 points in the last poll?
30.
Even worse, right? And I always feel like, Judge, to be honest with you, he spends so much time talking about drag queens. Maybe he wants to be one. And
Who?
Ron DeSantis.
Oh.
He spends so much time talking about drag queens and what they shouldn't do and where they shouldn't perform and where they should be and where they shouldn't be.
This is an
Maybe
old
he
argument.
wants to put away
Yeah.
This is such an old argument.
Oh my
It's like
gosh,
if somebody introduces an
Wait a minute.
idea that you debate,
Right.
they go, oh, well, maybe why are you so obsessed with it?
Because I
It's so
prosecuted
old.
pedophiles my whole life.
No,
I'm
I
obsessed
mean-
with them.
Yeah, it is the
I'm not-
dumbest
that's
argument.
That's completely different. That's completely
Why?
different.
I was
That's
obsessed
completely
with them
different.
because I hated what they did.
So you
But-
think, but listen, I think a drag queen and a pedophile are two completely different things, and we can all agree on that.
I will agree on that,
Exactly.
absolutely. But
And I think
it
the
doesn't
ideal
mean
of-
that
Unless
I'm
a pedophile-
obsessed
I think
with them.
the ideal of getting
Why
rid
would
of
you say
drag
that?
shows.
What? Who said what?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.